Take one.
Okay. All right, so I got some notes that I want to use for the video because there's a lot of topics that I want to go over. But the intention of the video is simply to lay out my philosophy that would help my psychology into trading. So this part of the course, right, and this part of my life, it's very difficult to describe the psychology of trading without having the right philosophy in place. Because if I describe to you how I think about things, you may not think the same way. So you won't really come to the same conclusions. So if I describe to you my philosophy first, I think it would lay out a great framework into how you can interpret psychology and use it in your trading experience, but also it's a way of life. And that's kind of the way I live my life. So the notes are just going to take me chronologically through this experience. So the first thing I have here is you've been designed to protect what has been given to you. What does it mean to protect something? You're doing something, right? You're defending. So when you are defending, right, it's an action. And for me, words mean things and definitions to the words mean a lot. So the definition of defend is resist an attack made on someone or something. You're resisting an attack. What is attacking you if you're protecting something? So for most people in society, right, and in life, you have came up with things that design your life, the way you are, who people are to you, right? And when things like information come in and you start to decipher through information, you then start to become defensive because it is kind of breaking your reality of what you know. And if you are on a mission to change and become defensive to new information, then that change is going to be very hard if you stay in a defensive state. So the information is attacking you. The only way information can attack you is if it's attacking your philosophy. So philosophy to me, and by definition, philosophy to me is a way of thinking. By definition of philosophy, the word in itself stands for love of wisdom. In a broad sense, philosophy is an activity people undertake when they seek to understand fundamental truths about themselves, the world in which they live, and their relationships to the world and to each other. Philosophy, with those three things that are described, there's a few words that stick out to me. Themselves, the world in which they live, and their relationships, right? These are all very personal words. They all possess something, right? And it's for you. You possess these things. You possess your relationships. You possess your reality. You possess your truths. So if you are in possession of these things, then that means you have a philosophy that you currently use in today's world. And you have designed the person that you are today. It goes very deep, but if we keep this on the simple playing field of variables, that way of thinking that you have and the new information that is coming in, that is what you are defending. You're defending what you have created. And that information is attacking what you've created. So you become defensive, which makes it very hard. And you ask a lot of questions, a lot of why me's, right? And almost become a victim to this attack if you do not defend it in the right manner. So the equation for me that I've been thinking a lot about in order to make these videos, philosophy equals psychology. Psychology equals actions. Actions equal change in reality. Reality equals confirmation of philosophy. So that equation works in a cycle. And when we break down that equation, again, words mean things to me. So I want to give the definition of these words to make the equation make the most sense, right? So again, just to reiterate, philosophy equals psychology. Psychology equals actions. Actions equal reality. Reality equals confirmation of the philosophy, a full cycle like you described. Psychology, by definition, scientific study of human mind and its functions, especially those affecting behavior in a given context. Psychology is the effect of human mind and behavior in a given context. It even says in there, given context, meaning that there's a certain environment that would create a psychology. So to me, philosophy is the environment you can create in order to give you a psychology to operate with. Inside of that same definition, or the next definition, philosophy, as given as an actual definition, not my version, it's a theory or attitude that acts as a guiding principle for behavior. A theory or attitude that acts as a guiding principle for behavior. So if we go back to the definition of psychology, especially those affecting behavior in a given context, and philosophy is the guiding principle for that behavior. Therefore, philosophy is the environment that psychology exists in, because philosophy is in direct reflection of what behaviors you have. That being said, if philosophy and psychology are combined this way, even by definition in our English language, the outcome of this type of philosophy creates what we know as ego. Ego, to the regular society language, has a stigma. I've asked many people in my vicinity, what does ego mean to you? Most people give me the ideology of ego being a negative thing, that ego is bad. Ego is something that you shouldn't have. But the definition of ego is a person's sense of self or self-importance or self-esteem. So if society tells you that you shouldn't have self-esteem, self-importance, or self, then who are you? Because you have a name and you repeat your name and you have behaviors and you have a philosophy and a psychology, which we just described. But that creates a person with a name, and that person with a name has importance for himself, which creates an ego. But in society, you're not allowed to have an ego. So if you have an ego, then society likes to say you should humble yourself. Humbling yourself means to not be too self-absorbed, which means there needs to be a certain amount of ego that is allowed. And if there's a certain amount of ego that's allowed, then that means that you should be you in certain situations and not be you in others. So if you're trying to exist in society, depending on the circumstances, you get to have an ego or you don't. These are definitions in my interpretation of them. The next thing I have on here is contrast. The definition of contrast: the state of being strikingly different from something else or close in association. The state of being strikingly different from something else or close in association. So when you're talking about contrast, you are comparing something, but not judging something. When you compare something, you're just taking both and you're finding similarities and the things that may be different. But you're not giving a bias towards one side or the other. All of these philosophies and definitions and words that I'm describing fit into trading, and we will get into this, right? But you need to understand the philosophy first. It's a very deep topic, but it will create a very good foundation into where you can lay out the way you think in order to executing a trade properly and thinking about the outcome of your entire trading journey, not just specifically one trade. So the next point is a being, the definition of a being, right? And we'll get into this. Definition of a being: the nature or essence of a person. The nature or essence of a person. Does not say a name. It does not say an individual, right? It says the nature of a person, the essence of a person, meaning a person is supposed to be a certain way in an ecosystem, not necessarily an individual in its own way, in its own ecosystem. It's just in nature. You have a place, and you naturally can fit that place. Humans are so complex in anatomy, just like all things of nature. But what makes us complicated is our mind. Our mind makes us complicated. But every animal is built up with some legs, hearts, organs. The body is very, very complex in anatomy. But you, as a person, are made up maybe just like a lot of these animals, but you have a mind. And that's what makes the human race very complex and why we are the creatures that create society, which is this experience that we need to stray away from if we want to develop a psychology to coexist and become good traders to fit in society the right way, the way we want to. Because you obviously are here because you don't fit in society correctly. You want to achieve money. You want to achieve financial stability, right? You want to be able to have your freedom back. You realize that sitting at a desk is not something that you were meant or be born to do. And it's not natural for your human existence. So if that is the case, then this philosophy is something that you can have on the side of also being a human in society. This is not a video describing how you should escape society entirely. It's just how to live amongst it and with it with the least resistance. Society, the definition, is a community, a nation, or a broad grouping of people having common traditions, institutions, and collective activities and interests. The main topics here, community, nation, or broad group, and they share the same traditions, institutions, activities, and interests. So if you are currently in society as a working individual, then you are part of a group or a community, and you do have the same interests because you are working for a company. And the contributions of your work, maybe you are getting paid, but the contributions is still towards whatever the company is working towards. So you are a part of that community, whether you know it or not. You just need to survive, so you've got a job. So if you think that deep, then whatever that job is successfully doing for you, which is paying your bills, you're also in contribution of successfully doing whatever your CEO is in charge of. Those contributions are helping that company. The same way your philosophy or psychology is helping you create the life that you live right now. So the next definition here is choice. An act of choosing between two or more possibilities. Choice. Did you get a choice to be a part of society? You probably didn't. You were probably a kid and you were taught to go to school and you were taught to get a job. So you were taught all these things. You did not get the choice to go to school. You had to. You did not get a choice to get a job. You had to. Because in order to survive in our society, you needed to be educated and you need currency, right? If you don't have contributions, you can't exist here. That wasn't a choice. It's a way of life. So, that being said, it leads into a lot of different things in that philosophy, but we described a lot of definitions here, right? So now let's use all these definitions in correspondence with the way that I think and the way that I've been able to keep my journey afloat in trading, right? So for me, my philosophy is everyone has an ego, and that ego is the person that you know, which is the name, right? So when you're watching this video, you're looking at me and you're seeing my face, but I'm speaking to you right now and I cannot see my face. My name is Xavier, and I have done a lot of things in life that you know of, and you are here because you are wanting these lessons from the things that I have been through. So Xavier, as an ego, is here to be the face of all of these lessons. But all these lessons are not technically mine. I've learned a lot of things from traveling, from talking to other people, from teaching other people, and lives that I have not lived, because I've been able to empathize with a lot of different people and see the things that they're going through and help them get from one point in the other, and I learned from that experience. But I didn't do it. So that can't be a part of my ego. That can't be a part of me, Xavier, because that wasn't me. I didn't do it. But my boy, he did. But I taught him how to do it, and he was able to do this thing. That is me being a being, right? We talked about the definition of a being. It's just the nature of being a human being. So I don't necessarily just have one person that exists for me. In relationship, for example, my mother loves me, my sister loves me, my brother loves me, my lady loves me. Therefore, I am a son to my mother, I am an older brother to my little brother, I am an older brother to my little sister, and I am a lover to my woman. These are all different individuals, but they all see my face and they call me Xavier. But to each one of them, Xavier may be someone different because of the collective experiences we all had together. This philosophy allows me to separate myself for each one of these people to give them unconditional love. If I was to be Xavier and I did not separate these characters, my love would not be very unconditionally. It would be pretty conditional, because you would need to be under the conditions of nurturing me, Xavier, as an ego. But if I couldn't put that aside, there's a lot of things that I wouldn't be able to talk about with a lot of these people in order to nurture these relationships. Because if you bring an ego, then that means that you will, again, be what? You would be defensive, because they are hurting or attacking the character that you are. But you chose to bring this character to this conversation when he didn't need to be here, because this conversation isn't for you, it's for them. So if you can learn how to do this in a philosophical way, or understand this particular ideology and practice, you too can separate the relationship for the person that you want to communicate with in society. Because society, again, is a common group of people. So we all have a mother and a father, like scientifically. So if that's the case, like, we all do have multiple people in our lives with the same label of relation. And we're supposed to be that someone for someone, which means you can fit this philosophy in your life no matter who you are, what gender you are, what age you are. So that being said, with this philosophy, how is this applicable to the psychology of trading? When I am a trader, I am not me as a person. I am just a computer that has been taught an algorithm that the market moves in this particular way. And with these conditions, I can execute a trade in this direction. That is what I'm thinking of. That is me being a being. I am a being that has been taught an algorithm and I'm supposed to execute it as a trader. How can emotions exist when all you can do is execute characteristics? Emotion doesn't exist there. But if I was Xavier and I am currently losing a trade, Xavier's a Marine. He's done a lot of different deployments. He's been in the gym for a long time and has a good body. He's made a multi-million-dollar trading experience. This dude, how is he losing a trade? I should feel emotionally attacked. There should be some kind of motivation in trying to get this trade back. That does not work in trading. I can lift more weight in the gym to get a bigger body, but I cannot just place a bigger trade on something that doesn't make sense, because I probably end up losing again. Again, emotions. How can we describe emotion? So for me, again, words mean things, right? So emotion, instinctive or intuitive feeling, as distinguished from reasoning or knowledge. Instinctive or intuitive. We'll get back to the definition of emotion. So instinctive is relating to or promptly done without conscious or thought. It's instinctive, right? So if you're an animal and you're being hunted, you can almost feel something hunting you, right? It's very instinctive because that's your instincts to protect you. So the relating or prompted by instincts done without conscious thought, right? So in trading, everything is very conscious, right? You're thinking about the trade that you're going to get in. But you can't be conscious of a losing trade if you didn't bring the ideology of losing the trade in the first place. You're trading a model, right? In our philosophy and the way that I teach, there's an algorithmic model, perfect retracement, for example. Market drops, gives you the 1, 2, 3, it goes up. That is our model and that is our algorithm, and there should be variables involved in that. No instinct needs to be involved in those conditions to bring any emotion. It should just be execution of the model that is given to you. Let's go deeper into the emotion definition. Intuitive, using or base on what one feels to be true, even without conscious reasoning. Using or based on what one feels to be true, even without conscious reasoning, right? So what this is saying is, whatever you feel is true, even if there's no reasoning behind it, you will feel emotion towards it. So you are instinctively believing that this trade is not a good trade eventually when the numbers are red. So you will feel emotions. And then when the trade is green, you instinctively feel that this trade is good. So you'll be happy and you're feeling emotions. But if you are adding this type of intuition to trading, that these two things are the description of what emotion is. You are adding emotion to a trade that does not have the conditions to be emotionalized. There is no intuition, there is no instinct. Is it the trade setup or is it not? That's the philosophy in my head. I'm a being. I don't have these particular emotions. I need to see the characteristics that goes behind that. The emotion may exist in your ego, but if you can turn that ego off and put it to the side until your trading day is done, you can go back and internalize it for yourself. Oftentimes, I see a setup and I don't add any of the emotion into it. I'm just executing what I see, and I take it from entry point to where it goes. And once I've concluded that trade and I go back to being me, I'm like, wow, I just did that. That was cool. I made 10 grand. Now I actually get to use it as me, as Xavier. Not exist in what succeeded yesterday. Today's a new day. So if you don't get that same model and characteristic setups, you cannot force a trade, right?
So it's correlation of emotion with defending and ego.
Oh, correlation of emotion
Yeah,
with defending.
Because you feel attacked, and then ego, which is your personality.
Okay. Sure. So if you have an ego, then you obviously have something that has made up this person, right? Whether that is accolades or confirmation of existence through things. Believe it or not, it gets really funny, right? You can consume things by watching YouTube videos, watching movies, everything that you experience in the world. You were once a baby, just like everyone else, and you were taught a lot of things based off of what you were consuming. And all the things that you consumed has been collected into what you believe and what you don't believe, and has brought to your name, which is your ego, right? In my philosophy. So if that is your ego, then you will become emotional when put in conditions that challenge your ego. If you're put in conditions that challenge your ego, you will become emotional. So some people that you may see that may not subscribe to this philosophy, but bring their ego everywhere, you might see the guy that can stand in front of a lot of people and talk, right? But if someone who wasn't designed around an ego that way, they might be very emotional on stage because there's too many people looking at them, right? So that state is the conditions that the ego exists in. So if you can understand what conditions your ego feels the most emotional in, to avoid feeling hyper emotions and putting you into a defensive state, you need to know where your conditions are when you should bring it and when you shouldn't. Because if you're going to walk into a very public place, maybe a party, and you bring your ego, but you know it gets defensive when there are lots of people around, then you'll probably be very defensive at this party. And at that point, why did you even come here? You put yourself in a position of having to defend yourself and feeling attacked, right? But if you can't put that to the side and be there as a being for whoever you're with, then you will probably have a really hard time in those conditioning. So that will derive the emotion. Again, if we go back to the definition of emotion, instinctive and intuitive, your instincts are trying to protect the ego you have created. And the intuition can only see things that have put you in this environment before, and it tries to anticipate those emotions before you actually get there to stop you from being there in the first place, through my contrary belief.
How does being in different societies impact your way of decision making as a being?
So as a being experiencing societies, right? Because there are different types of societies. So we'll say maybe Japan versus America, two very big different societies. Like the contrast is insane. In America, maybe people are a lot louder. Obviously, you speak English, so you can understand them, things like that. And then Japan is very structured, very rule based, right? So if you're a being, you don't really know of anything, which means you're not allowed to judge. You can only contrast. So if you are an American and you came from America and you go to Japan, but you look at Japan in the way they all stand in line. In America, we don't really stand in line that well. We kind of congregate. In Japan, they actually stand in single file lines. It's very structured. So you as a being would be able to notice what everyone else is doing and fall into place for the respect of the society that you're in. But you as an ego, as an American, would see that and be like, why are all these people waiting in line like this? And sometimes you'll see the person just skip the entire line because they're American and the structure will not say anything. So as a being experiencing society, you would need to visualize the society in itself. You're a person, you're a being. You can't smell what other people are smelling because you can't tell. You can't feel what other people are feeling because you can't tell. But you can see everything they're seeing, and you can kind of tell that they're seeing it because they will interact with it as well. So for example, you see the single file line, they're obviously standing in line. They must see the line as well. If you're a being, then you need to fall in place. And if you're, again, as a being, this is creating so many different things. This is creating patience for someone who normally doesn't practice it. If an American is in the States and they try to sit in this line, they become impatient. Why is this line taking too long? How do I get to the front? Who can I pay? But in Japan, if you become a being and you don't bring that ego there, you can sit in line patiently and let it move the way it's going to move without bringing the tendencies of your ego, which allows you to be very adaptive to the environment. This is a good example because it shows you that if you can just zone in on this being character for just this short period of time, look at the patience that it just created and maybe the things that it avoided. You avoided everyone from feeling uncomfortable by you falling out of line. You didn't mess with their structure in society at all. It's not you being patient, but it looks like you're being patient because you're not from here, but you're still willing to abide by them out of respect because you're in their country. So those are things that I've actually personally dealt with, in my thoughts and the contrary belief. And my philosophy has helped me avoid a lot of confrontation just by being able to do that for a short period of time. That it's going to come to an end and you're going to get served. You know what I mean?
This one fits perfectly with what you just explained. Where does being a being and choice fit?
Where does being a being and choice fit? Nice. So oftentimes you have to ask yourself, what are you going to get out of this experience? What are you trying to conquer right now? Right? So when is it time to be a being and when is it time to have choice? Right? Or make the choice of being a being or having an ego. If you are trying to acquire something out of life, right? Let's be more specific. Let's say you wanted to change your body, right? That's a very interpersonal experience. There's a lot of things that you would need to bring an ego for in that experience because it's for you, right? It's for you. But let's say there's a collective experience. Your community wants to get together and clean up the neighborhood. Can't really bring an ego to that, right? You want to be a being in that because now you're a part of society again, right? So you want to be able to be there fluid with the people, go with the flow. Because if you bring an ego and someone has a plan of action that may be very smart, but you're usually the leader, you're not going to want to listen to this guy, regardless of how smart he may be. You're the guy who calls the shots. That's your ego, if that's who you are. So it would be better off if it's a collective, try to be a being. If it's interpersonal and it only will affect you with your actions, bring your ego. It'll help you a lot because your ego has a lot of accolades.
How does that fit with trading when it comes to choice?
That experience fits with trading because the market, again, going back to a way of thinking, you need to develop a philosophy. So this philosophy that I have just given you allows me to create shells. So now I get to create shells of philosophies. So again, conditions. When I'm with my mother, I have the philosophy of a son. The son is supposed to take care of his mom, show his mother love. When she speaks, just listen. You know, you're not supposed to just bash or give her the contrary. She just wants to talk to you, things like that, right? That's a philosophy of being a son. So when I'm with my mom, I get to bring my son philosophy, right? It's like a little tool bag. So when I go to trade, what is trading, right? In philosophy, you have to ask questions in order to get the answers, and those answers become the variables that create how your psychology should work. The philosophy is going to create how your psychology will work. So the philosophy in trading, what is trading? You are experiencing a chart, and that chart is making candles. Can you interact with these candles and make them move at your will? No. Okay. So then that means they're going to move as they move. How do you interact with trading? You get into buys, you get into sells, right? You can bet on the move of trading. Okay, so I can't interact with trading, but I can bet on the move that is happening. So now that's where we subscribe to understanding, well, what moves the market? Well, people and algorithm. What do people have that algorithms don't? People have emotions. Algorithms have executions. Where would you make the most educated decision if you were to bet on the market moving in a particular direction? Can you bet on how people will feel? Or can you bet on algorithm reacting to something that you know exists? So our philosophy with these questions are leading us to variables that are statements. And this is my belief. I know I can't make a bet off of emotions, and I know I shouldn't bring them either, but I know I need to interact with the algorithm. So now the question is, well, what shows me that the algorithm is trading and not the people? And that's where models come in. So now my models, in direct reflection of the algorithm, should show me the characteristics that the algorithm is going to take over, and I can start looking for my entry positions and take this trade without emotion and without betting on emotion, meaning I can take confidence in the idea that if the algorithm is in place, the algorithms has to do what it's going to do. It only can execute what it's going to execute. People can change their mind. The computer will not. So if that's the case, anything that happens outside of the confines of the algorithm is manipulation from an outside source. What is the outside source if there's only those two things participating? Algorithm and people. So manipulation will be people interacting with the algorithm. And if that instance of you trading the algorithm, people came in, manipulate it really quick, the algorithm's still going to do what it intended to do in the first place. So the same trade you were in prior to the manipulation is still going to take place. They just manipulated it on the market. Since you've been introduced to the philosophy moving into the psychology creating the action from what you were thinking into reality, and reality confirming your philosophy, right? With this stuff, everything that I've been teaching you through trading and all of these things, I often say, stay away from YouTube. Stay away from experiencing other traders along their journeys. And I said that because I wasn't in the position to be able to teach you this philosophy. And I believe with this philosophy, you'd be able to look at things very differently than you used to before. Because when you don't have this philosophy, you are just a person experiencing your trading journey, and you have, again, the ego. So now you look at information in a way of comparison. And when you start comparison, then you can become defensive or you will attack, right? So that being said, when you're consuming other people's YouTube videos, you're not contrasting them with my strategies. You are taking my strategies and trying to find the deficiencies in between what makes someone else successful in trading as well. So I say all the time, there are a million ways to trade. but this is the way I trade. This is the way I've been able to be successful in my position, and this is my philosophies. So I say this to say that I wrote this down so I can say it properly. Signals, live zooms, watching performance with the philosophy you have is very toxic, right? Because you compare, instead of being a being, consuming the right questions to lead to better philosophy. So if you have your ego, it's very toxic for you to go experience other things, because all you can do is say, well, why is this working and it's different than what's working for what he's teaching me? And now you're bringing in inner conflict that doesn't need to be there, but you don't have the right philosophy to be asking the right questions. So if you internalize this ideology, you can go watch other people's YouTube videos and try to find the variables involved in how they trade. How's this person trading? Is he trading emotion or is he trading algorithm? Okay, he's trading algorithm. What characteristics of his strategy may be very similar to the strategy that X is teaching? Rather, making assumptions or casting judgment on which trader is better and who you should follow. Because trading, again, is introverted. You should not be following anyone. That's why I say signals, live zooms, and watching performance can be toxic with your mind, because now you're in comparison with me. Why can't I be as good as him? He's obviously doing something right. He must have more money. That's probably why he can stay in trades. He must actually know what he's doing. There's probably something he's not telling us. There's a whole lot of assumptions you can come up with instead of being directly accountable for yourself, your actions, and your philosophy. So when you change this way of thinking, you can ask better questions, because when you ask those questions, it only creates defense or offense. And in that position, you're not going to get any gain of it. All you're doing is starting a war with someone that is trying to help you. So I have written down after that as well, I can't give you what the rest of the trading world markets to you. They give you dreams, motivation, and dopamine, and I can't nurture you properly because you will take everything I give very wrong. The rest of the world, when they give you the aspect of trading, it's in direct reflection of marketing. I have not paid for an advertisement of trading. You came to me and asked, yo, can I learn this thing? And I sat down with you and we talked and we said, okay, yeah, we can make this happen. These are the models. We'll do one-on-ones. We'll put in the work to be able to get ourselves into this position. This is a very interpersonal relationship with each other in order to get the outcome we're looking for. But trading is not necessarily an outcome. For me, it's a way of life. I don't consider trading to be something that I will do if it's good. It is something I have to do to make my life good. So I have to do it. This is my philosophy. Therefore, again, I can't give you what the rest of the trading world markets to you. It's hard to give you a play that you don't understand, because I'm giving you a play that I understand, because I'm a being seeing the variables, pressing the button, and getting what comes of the loss and the gain. And I will experience it with my personal parameters of risk to reward, which, yes, I may have more money to experience more loss, or the trade goes really well and I didn't even ever see it red at all. But if you're trading me instead of trading the chart, you won't be able to be in direct reflection of being able to repeat a trade for yourself. And you can't learn from that experience. So that being said, with this philosophy, you now get to become a being. If you're going to take my trades, be a being to the trade. Experience the trade with me. Take the variables. Why is he getting into this? How much would the risk be in this parameter? What is the gain? What can I learn from this if it does work? What can I learn from this if it doesn't? Because your only lesson out of it should not be, oh, well, I know not to take his next trade, or I know to add more money to his next trade. That's not going to help you. So you need a different perspective to look from in order to accumulate lessons for yourself and internalize it properly. So that being said, be careful with what you're experiencing online, because again, it's manipulation, bro. Like, you have traders that I only trade trend lines. What does that mean? If that person only trades trend lines, then you're going to think, well, if I'm trading anything else other than that, she's successful and I'm not, then maybe I need to be a trend line trader. And now all the years that you put into your strategy are gone. because now you start a new strategy, which means you need new years to put in. And then you're going to have to learn from that person. And now all you did was transfer to the marketing. They got you, because now you have to pay for the course, and you have to pay for the signals, and you have to pay for these things, because it's all marketing, which is fine because you're supposed to make money afterwards. So the money that you're investing is going to get you a better outcome. That is what we do it for. But who are you getting it from is the hard question. And what is that intention? But as long as you know your intention and the way you are going about it, then you can focus on your outcome rather than who's marketing better to you. That's where you find power in the philosophy and becoming a better trader. So I have something written down as well. Using action to receive an outcome with the wrong philosophy will make you a slave. Using action to receive an outcome with the wrong philosophy will make you a slave. I wrote that down in reflection of this marketing experience because, again, you'll fall into that cycle. You'll be marketed a new strategy. You'll be a person who goes in there and tries to learn it. You execute it. You find out it doesn't work for you because you're not using the right philosophy. And now you need to go find another strategy, and you just keep going through the same cycle. You're becoming a slave. So I wrote, mining for diamonds in a mountain not known for one will leave you guessing with every strike, will reveal what you've been looking for. And if you stop, you always guess if you would have hit it one more time, it might have been there, and so you try again. To say that off the tongue, if there's a mountain and you know diamonds are found in mountains, but no one knows that there's diamonds in this one, you're still going to try to hit it as many times as possible until you find one. And as soon as you stop and you didn't find any, you'll always ask yourself, if I would have hit it one more time, would a diamond have shown up? So then you might actually go and try it again. And you'll put yourself through the same loop over and over until you try to find the thing you're looking for, not realizing there was none there to begin with. And you're putting yourself in this philosophy because you want to think that you know best and no one knows other, which is fine if you're okay with that. But if you're not and you would like to be guided properly, then you should probably listen to the people that are trying to give you information and just be better at deciphering what information is good or bad and use it to your advantage. Yeah, we can get into questions.
Okay. Should being a being affect your morals?
Should being a being affect your morals? Not necessarily. Your ego has everything. It has your morals. It has your ethics. A being doesn't have anything. It's experiencing. But if a being experiences something that is against of experiencing what that is like, or your ego needs to show itself to defend what it believes in, the morals. So again, it comes down to the conditions you put yourself in. If it's worth it, then it might make sense for you to pop out with your ego and defend your morals. But if there's no real outcome on the side of defense, then you're better off experiencing something against your morals that could potentially make your ego a lot stronger in your morality.
Okay. And then my last question. If philosophy is part of the ecosystem, or is in an if philosophy is in an ecosystem within psychology, where does the ego exist?
If philosophy is in an ecosystem with psychology, ego is the outcome of psychology. Because philosophy is a way of thinking. And the way of thinking leads you to thinking about things you might want to take action on. So psychology is the thoughts that come before the action. Then when you get the action, you will develop an experience. And that experience will gain a real accolade for yourself or a real failure. And that is where your ego starts to become built with bricks. The first time you experience something, that is a brick. Whether it was a fail or a success, it becomes a part of your ego, because your ego will determine what? Self-esteem and self-importance. Some people, their self-importance is, I'm a loser. I always lose. Nothing in this world does me right. Everything finds a way to do me wrong. I am very unlucky. Everything always happens to me and no one else. You are building the bricks successfully to be a loser, and that is your ego. Based off of the way you think and the psychology that made you try and the attempt that you gave that made you fail. And when you failed, you internalized it, and that became your ego. And now this is who you are. You're a loser. That's the only way of change. So again, if you can go into that equation, fix the way you think, which would change your psychology, which would change what you take action on, which would change if you become a winner or a loser. And if you lose a lot, then maybe if you think about the way you lose, you might be able to make yourself a winner without actually winning at all. Just depends on how you think, because no one's there telling you that you're a loser. It's just you. So however you build your bricks in those confidence, you can be a very confident loser because you came here to lose. So does that not make you a winner? It gets very weird, but there's no one else to argue with you on this topic. So you get to create how your ego reacts in emotion. There's some losers out there that are really good. They're actually happy when they lose. Strange, but that is something that they've successfully done for themselves. They don't have to be a winner. They can be happy for the winner, and they can be happy with their attempt, even though they lost. So that psychology is insane, but it comes from the philosophy they chose. So that's where ego fits in that ecosystem.